You moved up here, you're meeting with the president. Can you tell us what happened, what you talked about?
The president and I went through the peace process, what can be done over the next few months, particularly to move it forward again. I think there is a real sense of momentum back in it. Things are beginning to happen. They're beginning to happen on the ground, which is important, but there's a huge amount still to do. And I think the most important thing to register is his determination, which I really did appreciate and see tonight to be the person that takes it forward and if at all possible does it.
You talk about momentum. I think there was a great deal of momentum coming out of Annapolis, and they got back home and not much happened.
Well, we then had the Paris conference where we got international support from the international community for state building in Palestine. We actually got $7 billion pledged. We've got to get that delivered. But actually, I think on the Palestinian side, even though life is really tough for people still, on the West Bank particularly, people can see some progress and some hope there. Now, I agree, there's still an immense amount to do, but partly, I should think as a result of the president's visit, there is a whole structure now that's there for the negotiating process. And my impression, I'm talking to these people the whole time, is that they're really serious. Now, I know, because I'm the first to see it also, from ordinary people there's a lot of skepticism. We've been here many times before. Can it really work? Are people really serious? My judgment is that the leadership, Israeli, Palestinian and American, is serious. And this thing's not going to get any easier to solve in 2 years' time than now.
One of the things people say, of course, is that you've got three weak leaders. You've got President Bush, is not very popular, Abbas is not very popular, and has no control over Gaza and Oman.
Yeah, and what I say to people is, well, first of all, President Bush most certainly is popular here.
That's true.
Right. And in any event, he's the President of the United States of America, and he's a very determined man, as I know. When his mind is set on something, he will go for it, and he is going for it. And in relation to Prime Minister Olmert and President Abbas, you see, I think they're as strong or as weak as the process. In other words, if the process is moving forward, they're strong. If it's not, they're weak. But if they're determined to move it forward and are prepared to do that with the courage that's necessary, and I think both of them are, then it's not impossible to see how you could shape this and make it work. Now, there's huge problems because the Israelis have got to be convinced on security, and there's a lot of convincing to do. The Palestinians got to be convinced that something's actually going to happen on the ground to change their lives. But it's not impossible to do this if people are determined to do it, and I think the determination is there. So I mean, I'm not being, daft about it and saying it's definitely going to happen, but I think people haven't yet caught up with the fact that determination is very real, and that the step by step, the bits are being put in place, the framework to allow that to happen.
Got 1 year left. The president seemed unequivocal tonight that it should happen, would happen by the end of the year. Things move slow in the Mideast, you know that. 1 year? Yeah, can you really do this by the end of the year?
Something, if you really wanted to do this, if you really wanted to do it, the issues at the heart of the final status negotiation to do with territory and the refugees and Jerusalem, I mean, they're all tough, but they're not irresolvable. If you really wanted to make progress on the ground, getting the economy moving on the Palestinian side, as we've actually begun to do a bit. I mean, the president was in Bethlehem. I was there just recently myself. They've had a dramatic increase in tourism now as a result of some of the changes that have been made. It's not impossible to do. If the Palestinians really believe they've got a possibility of a state happening and the international community get behind them, they could run a state and build the right institutions to do it. These things aren't impossible. And things only move slowly in the Middle East because people choose to make the move slowly. If people choose to make the move fast, they can happen fast.
And the idea of a contiguous state, explain how that could happen.
It's probably not a good idea for me to get into all the intricacies of the negotiation, but essentially the most important thing in the end is there's one Palestinian state. So Gaza and the West Bank have got to be together. and they've got to be together in a way which allows access between the two, but in a way that doesn't either harm the security of Israel or indeed the borders of Israel. There are a lot of interesting and imaginative solutions to that, and again, I think if there was a will, there would be a way found through that.
So he's literally talking about some sort of connection between them.
Well, these are the things that are being talked about. It's for the parties to sort out which solution they want in the end. But, you know, if you decide that you want to make this work, if you decide that in the end, the only long-term future for the security of Israel is for the Palestinian people to have their own homeland, and if the Palestinians understand the only long-term possibility of the state is to recognize Israel, to live in peace with Israelis, to get the rest of the region to recognize Israel, you can find a way around the question of how you link up Gaza and West Bank. None of this is impossible to do. So the question is, how great is the determination of people to do this? And in the end, you know, the Palestinian people and the Israeli people will decide it, in my view, which is why I think if the Israeli leadership and the Palestinian leadership really go for this, and the President of the United States, whose respect here is immense, is behind that, then my judgment is the Israeli people and the Palestinian people will go for it. Now, they'll only go for it if they think it's real, and at the moment they're skeptical. But if over the coming months we can change that skepticism a bit and get past what I call the minimum credibility threshold for this, then I think it's possible, yes.
And in terms of security in Gaza, and Prime Minister Olmert said that it is hard to imagine a peace agreement without terror stopping in Gaza. How does Abbas do anything about that?
Well, in the end, you see, I think the Gazan people will do something about this if we can offer them the prospect of joining a viable peace process. And then it will be for people in Hamas or in any other group to decide, do they want to come in on the basis there will be two states, Israel and Palestine, which means recognizing Israel and giving up violence, or do they want to be irreconcilable and out of that process? And again, I think if we can get real movement going here in this part of the Palestinian territory, and we're beginning to see the signs of it, slow I know, but beginning to see the signs of it, then I think that it's possible to persuade people in Gaza. And you know, for the Israelis, we've always got to understand this. There are rockets being fired every day from Gaza aimed at Israeli civilians indiscriminately. Those rockets could land at any point on a kid's playground and kill an awful lot of innocent children. So the Israelis are naturally concerned about security. But if we manage to put the right systems in place for security over time, and we manage also to get the broad mass of the Palestinian people going in the right direction with this, I don't think any extremist group will be able to stand in the way of the will of the people. And in the end, the Palestinians will sort them out.